are ready for the fight, we will struggle for the right, and we know that Grant is true, his arm is strong. He is once more at our head, as he was when late he led, and the battle cry of freedom was our song. Grant, 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 the country's calling. Goodbye, Andy, you must go. For the man who'll be our head, on to victory has led. For to Grant a traitor ever is a foe. He will win election day, as he holds our foes at bay, and we all will cheer to hear the happy news. He will oust the traitor horde, with the ballot as his sword. The Ku Klux Klan will shiver in their shoes. Grant, 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 the country's calling. Goodbye, Andy, you must go. For the man who'll be our head, on to victory has led. For to Grant a traitor ever is a foe.
Ulysses S. Grant was the fifth American general elected as president. As the commanding general of the Union Army, Grant led the United States to victory in its costly Civil War. After the war, he was in charge of implementing congressional reconstruction, often pitting him against President Andrew Johnson. He was the first president since Andrew Jackson to serve 2 full terms. Grant led the Republicans in their effort to remove any traces of Confederate nationalism, protect African American citizenship, and support industrial expansionism. However, his second term was riddled with corruption and racked by the Panic of 1873. For many years, he was regarded as a weak president, whose administration was infested with dishonest Army cronies. But recently, Grant's historical stock has risen in light of his vigorous enforcement of Reconstruction and his commitment to African American enfranchisement. Grant graduated from West Point in 1843 and served in the Mexican-American War, retiring in 1854. He struggled financially in civilian life, and when the Civil War began in 1861, he rejoined the U.S. Army. In 1862, Grant launched a vigorous assault on Fort Donelson in Tennessee on his own initiative, earning him the nickname Unconditional Surrender Grant. His aggressiveness was just the kind that President Lincoln had been looking for, and he promoted Grant to the rank of Major General. He soon gained control of Kentucky and most of Tennessee, and won a bloody victory at the Battle of Shiloh, where he earned a reputation as a commander willing to withstand many casualties. In July 1863, after a long siege, Grant took the fortress citadel of Vicksburg, giving the Union control of the Mississippi River and dividing the Confederacy in two. Along with the Union victory at Gettysburg on the same day, Vicksburg was seen as the turning point of the war. Lincoln promoted Grant to commanding general of the United States Army in March 1864, when he confronted Robert E. Lee in a series of bloody battles, trapping Lee's army in their defense of Richmond. In April 1865, Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox, effectively ending the war. After the Civil War, Grant led the Army's supervision of Reconstruction in the former Confederate states. Elected president in 1868, and re-elected in 1872. Grant stabilized the nation during the turbulent Reconstruction period, prosecuted the Ku Klux Klan, and enforced civil and voting rights using the Army and the newly formed Department of Justice. He also built a coalition of black voters, Northern newcomers dubbed carpetbaggers, and native Southern white supporters, or scalawags, to extend the Republican Party's foothold in the South. In this time, African Americans were elected to various offices. Grant had to respond to charges of corruption more than any other 19th century president, but he also appointed the first Civil Service Commission and signed legislation ending the corrupt patronage system. Grant left office in 1877 and embarked on a 2-year world tour, which greatly helped to establish the American presence abroad. Early historical assessments were negative about Grant's presidency, often focusing on the corruption charges and ranking his presidency below average. But modern research, in part focusing on civil rights, evaluates his presidency more favorably. his greatest achievement remains his invaluable contributions to the Union cause during the Civil War.
He said, "Let us have peace." Unlikely rise he had, although he hated war, he could not escape it. Earned stripes in Mexico, did well in the army, but he just wanted out. He drank to ease that pain. Led the North as general in the Civil War. He would prove to everyone that he was a great fighter. He was a great fighter. His friends and family made up his cabinet. This led to corruption and much incompetence. Under his leadership, the country built the Transcontinental Railroad, but underneath the accomplishments there lingers some scandal. Fifth War hero to assume the highest office, but once he got to the top, he did not have a clue. He did not have a clue.
Throughout the course of the American Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln was both blessed and cursed by a variety of leaders that served under his command. But in the Eastern theater of the war, at the beginning of the conflict, things didn't necessarily get off to a great start for him. General Irvin McDowell soundly defeated General George B. McClellan, soundly defeated General John Pope, soundly defeated General Ambrose Burnside, soundly defeated, as did his successor at the Battle of Chancellorsville in May 1863. Things were looking very bleak for the Union Army in the Eastern theater. But things took a turn that summer when a Pennsylvanian by the name of General George Gordon Meade took command of the Union Army of the Potomac. And here at Gettysburg, in this farmhouse, he made one of the most important command decisions of his life that ultimately gave him a huge victory here on Northern soil. In the Western theater of the war, Union forces are meeting success, but they're meeting it a little bit earlier. And this is in large part due to the cunning leadership of General Ulysses S. Grant. Grant scores a number of victories for the North throughout this time, including Fort Henry and Fort Donelson, the Battle of Shiloh, Champion Hill, Vicksburg, and Chattanooga. Grant's success in the West will ultimately lead to his promotion as overall commander of all Union forces. At this time, Ulysses Grant is working with a number of generals and developing partnerships with them. These include notable leaders such as William Tecumseh Sherman, who will lead his famous March to the Sea in 1864, and also Philip H. Sheridan, a cavalryman who will lead his infamous raids into the Virginia's Shenandoah Valley, also in 1864. Other notable leaders in the Western theater of the conflict include General George H. Thomas, known as the Rock of Chickamauga for his firm stand at that battle. They also include William Rosecrans and Henry Halleck. So, as Grant took command, he had capable commanders in both the Eastern and the Western theater of the war. In the East, he has General George Meade directing the Union Army of the Potomac, while out west, William Tecumseh Sherman is directing several Union armies in their campaigns against Confederate forces. Whether these Union leaders fought in Virginia or Tennessee, their collective efforts ultimately helped batter the Confederacy into submission and helped preserve the United States.
All hail to Ulysses, the patriot's friend, the hero of battles renowned. He has won the bright laurel, its garland he wears, and his fame through the world we will sound. Yes, hail, patriot soldier, welcome you home when strife and rebellion are o'er, when terror shall cease and our land be at peace, and the war shall be heard of no more. When terror shall cease and our land be at peace, and war shall be heard of no more. When treason her banner unfurled in the land, to liberty then he was true. On his war horse her legions he met in the field, and defended the red, white, and blue. Yes, hail, patriot soldier, we'll welcome you home when strife and rebellion are o'er, when terror shall cease and our land be at peace, and the war shall be heard of no more. When terror shall cease and our land be at peace, and war shall be heard of no more. Then hail to Ulysses, the noble and brave, in trial the veteran so true. Yes, in honor we hail him, the champion of right, and the friend of the red, white, and blue. Yes, hail, patriot soldier, we'll welcome you home when strife and rebellion are o'er, when terror shall cease and our land be at peace, and the war shall be heard of no more. When terror shall cease and our land be at peace,